Hey everybody, this is Dave Dugdale, learningDSLRvideo.com. Does this look a little different? That's because I'm shooting with a Panasonic GH4 and I'm not shooting with my 5D Mark III. Panasonic, very exciting camera, especially for video. I'll be doing a whole review on it later, but right now I'm kind of just testing, like the contrast, saturation, the sharpness, a lot of picture profile type stuff inside the camera. But that's not really what this video is about. It's about two different lights because I'm getting into more LED lighting. One is the Alzo 3000, which is very affordable, coming in around $300, and it puts out kind of an equivalent 1000 watt. And it's very similar because I do have some work lights that put out 1000 watts, and I can pretty much put my shutter speed, aperture, ISO all the same, and it looks pretty much spot on. I don't really have like a very sophisticated lighting equipment, measurement equipment to let you know it's exactly 1K, but it's very close. And then another one is the Westcott SkyLux, and that one's a little bit dimmer. I'd say 2/3 of a stop dimmer than a 1K equivalent. So those are two lights. That one comes in a lot more expensive, about $1,000. So you can probably buy pretty much 3 Alzos for the price of one Westcott. And I do plan on buying 3. I'd love to have 2 kind of key lights and one as a backlight. Like a hair light, and you could do a lot of different things with them. So that's kind of what this review is about, and not the Panasonic GH4. So to test these lights, I want to show you basically actually 3 different lights. Fluorescent, which I'm going to be using a lot lately, and then the other 2 lights, and how easy they are to color correct. Because all of them have kind of either a green bias or something like that that you gotta have to get rid of, and how easy is it to fix and post. And I want to preface this by saying I am not a grip. I don't know a whole bunch about lighting, and I'm not a colorist. So just know that as we're going into this. So these are just my thoughts on the lights. So here we go. What I want to do here is on the right hand side, you see the fluorescent. It comes in around 4900 Kelvin. At least that's what I tested it within Photoshop or Lightroom, where it gave me the actual value for the white and the gray. So you can see right here, it looks very green. And this is the Westcott light. Looks pretty good right off the bat. And here's the Alzo, looking a little bit cooler when you compare it to the weather. Let's first take a look what we got over here. Here is basically one of our scopes. And basically what I'm going to be doing here is matching up the highlights and the midtones and the shadows that you can see here in the blacks, the grays, and the whites. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, I'm in speed grade, so what I'm going to do is look at that one right up there, and I'm going to click on the highlights. We're going to work on the highlights first. And as you can see, I'm bringing that in together. And we're just going to go ahead and raise that up just a little bit. And then we'll go to the midtones. And what I'm trying to do here is get rid of the color on the scope. So what you're trying to see here is, and then now I'm going to go back to the highlights and correct a little bit again. That looks pretty good, and then we'll go to the shadows real quick, and it looks really close already. Now if we look over here, boy, it looks awfully good. There's before, and there's after. Before and after. So the fluorescent cleaned up really well. If I hit P, you can see this a little bit larger. You can see my face is, that is a really good representation of my skin tone. So all right, let's move on to the Westcott next. So I'm going to click on Westcott. That's the one in the middle here. And again, let's see. We're going to start with the highlights first, because those seem to be off the most. Again, I am not a professional colorist. They probably start off with the blacks. Let's go to the midtones. So this one didn't need that much correction, as you can see. Maybe right about there. And the shadows right about there. Go back to the highlights one more time. Again, hope this is not too boring for you, because I want to show this in real time so you can see how easy these are to match up. Now if we let's hit P, now you can see the fluorescent and the Westcott are pretty darn similar. Now that I look at it, the fluorescent looks maybe a little bit too green even after I've corrected it. And the Westcott looks pretty darn good, really good. And you can see the colors of my jacket, or my shirt here, are pretty much the same. And that's important to look at as we move forward. So there's a little bit of difference in skin tone. I'd almost say that the Westcott looks a little bit better than the fluorescent. If I were to go back to the fluorescent, I would probably pull a little bit more green out. Again, depending on what monitor you're looking at, this could be all very different. Now we move on to the Alzo, the much less expensive model. Start off with the highlights. And again, like I was talking about before, I want to do this in real time so you can see that A, I'm not a professional colorist, and if I do something wrong, and you can see exactly what, right about there. The midtones, looks like there's a pretty strong blue push. So I've got to bring that blue into, see how there's that blue on top? I'm trying to get rid of the blue. And again, if I was a professional colorist, I probably would have done this done in seconds. I'd say right about there. Let's go to the blacks. Let's go back to the highlights and recorrect those after the midtones. Right about there. So now, let's hit P on the keyboard. Now when you look at it, these are all balanced. The blacks, the mids, all these should look very similar. And then what we've got here is it looks very different. This has, to me, this looks very green. This is more magenta, and then this one actually looks pretty good now that I'm looking all of them side by side. So what I'm noticing is the Alzo is hard to color correct. And again, I am not a professional colorist, and that's why I'm going to kind of shy away from this. The Alzo might be a great hair light, but as a key light used in this particular instance, I don't know. You know, the fluorescent cleans up wonderfully. So I'm going to hit 0 on the Alzo. And then, so that's before and after, actually on all of them. So that's before. You can see the fluorescent looks really green. The Alzo's got kind of a blue push. And if I release it, the Alzo now looks green, whereas the fluorescent looks good. And the Westcott looks pretty good, maybe a little bit too magenta. Let me show you something. If I try now to, you're going to probably say, well, all of the white, gray, and blacks are equal down here, but you can see my skin tones are different. But watch what happens. Like, okay, there's a little bit too of a mid-tone push, so I'm going to go to the mid-tones on the Alzo, and I'm going to pull away from green and go to magenta. And you see I got rid of that green cast, but now look what happens to the color of my shirt. It's gone and it's become a deeper blue than what's over here, and that's actually what the color is. So the Alzo, while you can fix it, you'll be doing other things and creating masks and selections to fix other things because you're trying to fix, you know, the skin tones. All right, a couple of things to mention. The Alzo 3000 has a somewhat loud fan in it. Some people might say it's okay. For me, if it's, let's say the light is 8 feet away from your talent and you're doing interview, at least I'm going to hear it. At least I've heard it on my recordings. And the last thing I want to do is try to do noise reduction on that type of stuff if I don't have to. So the SkyLux, on the other hand, it's much quieter. Which is really interesting is I took the SkyLux apart. And inside the SkyLux, there's an LED array made by a company called Aurora. So I called them up and I said, how much would it cost for me to buy one? Unit pricing for 100 of them, or let's say, or one individual. The guy wouldn't tell me, unfortunately, which kind of stinks. But let's say if it's $100. And then also in the SkyLux, there is the cooling unit, the radiator, and the fan, which is much quieter than the Alzo. And I looked that one up online and it costs $40. So let's say you've got $140 right there. If you bought the Alzo, gutted it, basically not the whole thing, kept the power supply and some of the other, you know, the dimmer and power cord, the case and the Bowens mount and all that stuff, you got that part of it, rip out the LED array, rip out the fan unit, and then put this in for $140 extra. And now you're in it, you know, $440, and you've got a really decent light. Just an idea I'm throwing out there. So, but I think for me, I'm thinking I'm gonna wait, see what happens. Maybe in a year or so, the prices will come down from these SkyLuxes and they'll get better unit pricing, or the next model of LED will come out, who knows. And in terms of CRI, I don't really care about CRI anymore because I've kind of been burned by the CRI number. Like, oh, it's got a really high CRI number, it must be good. CRI stands for Color Rendition Index. And basically, the way I understand it is you've got a spectrum of light and you've got energy all throughout the different colors of light. And what happens is with the sun, you got a CRO 100, it's the best you can get. Halogen, a tungsten, 100, best you can get. Equal energy all across the spectrum. But when it comes to these LEDs or fluorescents, they basically have a green spike. They're very efficient, and if they're engineered well, like we see with the SkyLux, it works great. But at the Alzo, it seems like we're missing these subtle hues and saturations. Now, if you're a professional colorist, maybe you can bring those colors back that are missing, but I am not. So I think the Alzo might be great for a hair light, but as a key light, I'm probably say no. So that's pretty much it. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.